Hey, everybody, it's Jeff Wilson.
And Brian Andrews, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
Yeah, I'm in the tent studio, so far unnamed. I got kicked into the backyard, guys. COVID kicked me out of the house, and my lady said, "Hey, why don't you buy $1,000 tent and set up your studio out there?" Which is, look, I'm a military guy. I've lived in tents most of my professional life, so I'm like, hey, that sounds kind of fun, actually. But I'm still working out the details. Like during the middle of the day, it's just too damn hot in a tent. Like the computer gets mad. I walk in with my shirt completely saturated with sweat. But that's how you grow your show. You continue to adapt to the changes around you and stick what works and get rid of what doesn't.
There you go.
At least you're not in a pup tent.
Shelter half.
Right. Adapt and overcome, Pete.
Yep, got to adapt and overcome. And I can't get my light to stay reliable, so I'm working on lighting. So like when I shut up, it goes dark. So if you guys see that, I'm still here, everybody.
Well, I know next time you'll have an air conditioner or something.
I have an air conditioner in here now. I have one. I just try not to use it when I don't need it. Like right now, it's not bad. It's warm, but it's not hot. But yeah, I have one. I got one the other day from my friend Dave, and I'm like, I need an air conditioner because it's ridiculously. I'm like wiping. Remember broadcast news when I can't remember who the character was, but he was just like sweating like crazy. It's like that. Let's talk about Collateral, though. I mean, you guys are. Is this the 6th book in the series?
Yeah, book 6 in tier 1. Seems like it went by fast, doesn't it? I don't know.
Yeah, I thought we just talked the other day, but it's been over a year.
Yeah, well, we missed you. We missed you. If that changes it.
I'm writing a note here just for everybody so they can get the link and everything. But let me ask you guys a question. Book 6, is there a book 7 and 8? Are they coming? Are they already in the works?
I mean, book 7's up here, right, Jeff?
Right.
Yeah. And we've brainstormed it. It's definitely in the works. It'll be out in a year or so. We're not going to stop writing the series until people stop reading it. That's for sure.
Yeah. What's fun about every time we do one of these books, because we're blessed and we have these other series, it gives us a little bit of time to sort of shift gears and focus on some other characters and stories, but always in the background. We kind of want to come back to Dempsey, and you need that little break. So some time passes, and in both of our heads, like ideas are percolating sort of in the subconscious for what's going to happen next with Dempsey and the team. And then when you get back to it, it's sort of like putting on that really comfortable pair of shoes or your favorite shirt. You're like, oh yeah, like this is great. I'm so happy to be back writing about Dempsey. If we had to do them back to back to back, there might be a little bit of, like writer fatigue or something like that. So I like the way that we do it now.
Look at the way I do it now here on the Break It Down show. Look at this. What? On the marquee.
Oh, you got to turn it the other way because I need to be on top. So,
Is that officially how you guys do it?
On our books, it's alphabetical, Andrews and Wilson.
Okay. I try to switch it up just to give Wilson a chance to be on top of Andrews.
He needs that. He needs that.
I got to take a picture of this while we're talking here. So there are books coming. This is nowhere near the end. And then for you guys, how long does it take to write a book?
Well, it used to, when we first started out, it was already faster than it was for us individually. We wrote solo before we started writing this series. And, you're looking at 9 months to a year to write a book. And the very first tier 1 book, we actually finished the rough draft. Of course, you write, Pete, that doesn't mean it's over. But the rough draft was done in about 4 months. And so it goes pretty quick. But now, now that we have this deal on the spinoff series, Sons of Valor coming next June, we have the Shepherd series coming next year from Tyndale, and then this new project with Tom Colgan at Penguin to do the Webb Griffin series. That's 4 books a year. Like we have no choice now but to be extremely efficient with our time. But fortunately, this is, like you said, book 6. We've had 6 books to sort of streamline our process and get into a rhythm of being able to write effectively. The only difference for us now is there's going to be a little overlap. We're going to be doing some editing while we're writing another book. And so that makes it a little bit busy. But Yeah, we've got it down to about 3 months to do a rough draft, but that's just survival. We have no choice at this point.
Yeah.
When I wrote my first book, it took 8 years. So that's a big improvement.
Yeah, it's always the problems that you have, not the problems that you want. And as soon as you get up to the next level, you realize, God damn, these problems are hard,
Yeah.
No, these are the problems I want. If I have to pick which problem to have, I want to have so many books that we're contracted to write that it's hard to do it. That's way, way better. So we're not complaining, that's for sure.
Yeah,
and I know
of
you
course.
said this before on one of your earlier shows, but the coolest thing about our method is the fact that we've eliminated the biggest hurdle for so many writers, which is the writer's block. So, before, when you're writing solo and you sort of lose momentum and you're not sure where you want to go, you have no choice but to just sort of wait until you figure out where you want to go. Now we don't hesitate at all. We just pick up the phone and call the other guy. So here's where I'm stuck. And we brainstorm, and 5 minutes later, it's like, oh, new momentum. Okay, I didn't think of that. Let's go. And you go back and finish that chapter. So it really is a nice kick in the butt. Anytime you're stalled, the other guy gets you moving again.
And are you guys writing like in a Google Doc at the same point in time, or is Jeff handling one part of it and Brian handling the other?
Yeah, it's more that. So we write simultaneously, but not in a shared document, because we divide up the chapters. So, in part 1, I might be writing 1, 3, 5, 9, 11, whatever. He's writing the other ones. So we're writing simultaneously. We're talking on the phone 3 or 4 times a day. And then we swap the chapters that we've written every 2 or 3 chapters. And then the other guy rewrites them and puts his, his strengths into that chapter. And then it goes into a master file. And then when we're done, we both make an editorial pass. So that's one of the reasons we can do it pretty quickly, is that we're writing simultaneously. So our daily page count can be 10 or 15 pages when we're in the middle of a project pretty easily, just because there's 2 of us doing it full time. So.
And if Penguin came to you right now and said, hey, we're going to need 2 more books a year, do you even have the bandwidth to do that? I mean, do you figure it out, or are you guys at max? I mean, I can't imagine you have a whole lot more capacity.
I don't think we could squeeze in 2 more full-length novels a year. That not without something having to shift.
Sure.
So far, we've been very fortunate because Tom Colgan at Penguin and Rick Blayweiss at Blackstone, Karen Watson over at Tyndale, we were very forthcoming with all of them, saying, this is our model, and we're interested in writing these different series. And if you can work with us, and we can be very honest and open about, okay, you guys we're gonna slot this book here, this book here, this book here, and we have a little bit of planning and coordination, we can get this all done. And they were very accommodating and just superstars about that. To do any more, though, I don't know, Jeff. What do you think? Might be
not 2 more. If it was the right opportunity and we had to burn the candle on the weekends for a couple of months, we could probably do 1 more, but it'd be an immense stressor. It'd be a family stressor. I don't think it'd be hard for Brian and I individually, but it would be away from the family that right now we don't really have to do, and we certainly wouldn't want to do. So, but I really like what Brian said. I'm glad he brought that up. This idea of the editors and the publishers working together. I think that people look at the publishing world, like all other business world, is very competitive, and why would I help that guy out? He's my competitor. And in the thriller community, at least in our world of writing thriller fiction, it's a small world, and people know each other. These editors from different houses know one another. They meet up at these meetings or on panels together. And it's like a giant family. There's always the dysfunctional relative, but in general, it's just a big family. And so we were absolutely amazed at how these editors that he listed already and the publishing houses were willing to coordinate together and work their schedules around one another to maximize our ability to produce books for all of them. So, kudos to the industry that they were, because we didn't know what to expect. It's like, well, we know we can get them done, but they can't all come out on June 15th, right? Like, that's not going to work for anybody. So everybody was fantastic. They communicated with one another. They were accommodating with one another. I just can't say enough about the industry that we're working with. It's been really amazing. might be unique to the editors. Maybe we got lucky, but boy, it's been a great experience.
The follow-up question to like the capacity question, I guess, is that, and you kind of already gotten to part of it, because this is what musicians and a lot of other artists go through. Is you don't pay me to play the drums or, you know, write the books. You pay me to aggravate the hell out of my family, you know, and deny time with them or be on the road or whatever it is, right? So when and we'll just use Penguin again. When Penguin comes and says, "Hey, we want to do this," you guys get to say that costs more money now, because we're already at max capacity, and to buy capacity, you got to spend more money. And then, you know, maybe the next, book 7 comes out slower because you have these new things. But that's where you guys are at right now, right? Like, you have to ask for more money to get, or a greater share, because you're in demand, and demand means money.
That's right. And also, you know, we have no illusions about the fact that like those other industries that you mentioned, it's a feast or famine business. So if you walk away from an opportunity, that opportunity might never come back to you again. So right. We've tried to cram in as much as we can, because we know that, you know, tomorrow could be different. The opportunities might just dry up. And, you know, we have no illusions about the fact that there is, like anything, there's a little bit of luck involved. And you know, we really decided, I don't know, Jeff, like maybe a year ago that we wanted to put the pedal to the metal and really go after some stuff. And we started negotiating and tied up all these deals, and then COVID hit. And I think, you know, if COVID had hit 6 months earlier, we would maybe not be in this position, because with COVID, you know, there's risk aversion and, oh, should we sign this contract now or whatever. So it really did, we're fortuitous. COVID sucks. But in our case, we got our deals lined out, and now we're in quarantine and we're riding our butts off at the time in the world when it's good to write your butts off in isolation, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the one good thing, is you can write from anywhere, and that anywhere can be home, and stay with your family and do all those things. What does a day look like? And I'm asking individually, because you guys must have different processes, but what does a day look like when you guys are in full writing mode?
Well, which is every day now, with so many books. But so it's really a full-time job now. You know, when I first started writing full-time, you know, all that really meant was it was my primary source of income. It wasn't like you were working 40 hours a week. We had a book a year coming out, and then we had a contract for a second one. But with this schedule that we have now, Brian and I, especially when you add, you know, marketing, publicity, you have the business side, you have, you know, edits, it's 8 hours a day. So, you know, my day, basically, I divide it into sort of the business and the writing. I do my best writing in the morning. And so I get up in the morning, get the kids ready for school. I'm lucky that my wife teaches at the same school my kids go to, so they're all out the door about 10 of 7, because she's got to be there early, and I'm golden until they come home. And so I do most of my really productive writing in the morning, and then in the afternoon I set aside that time for, you know, the business side of it, and you know, marketing, promotion, that sort of thing. So that's what works great for me. And by the time the kids come home, I usually don't have too much more work to do. Now, when you get down to a deadline, sometimes we squeeze into the weekends a little bit and evenings some, but I'm still pretty lucky that I can work when my kids are gone, and when they're back, I'm available to them. And I think you're similar for you, right, Brian?
Yeah, I think especially, you know, use maybe 10, 15 years ago, like I was a night owl and I could be very, very productive late. That just doesn't happen anymore. My most productive time is now in the morning. It's the best time for me to write. And then as that post-lunch, you know, sort of fugue sets in, that's a good time to, okay, get up, move around, do some social media. We talk business, do strategy. And then, like Jeff said, then it's dinner time, family time. But usually after the kids are in bed, that's another time where I can sit down, have something on in the background, and work on some, like, you know, the graphic stuff, some pre-populate some social media posts, and do stuff like that, website design and stuff, because we both take a very active role in you know, our branding, and how we want to present our image and things like that. So that's a good thing to do when you're watching TV.
Yeah, I mean, you're You're speaking my language. You're talking about my day too. I mean, I got up this morning, and I'm always trying to find some angle to do something better than before. And so right now, we because of COVID, we bought Rosetta Stone for the house, and I'm the one that puts time into it. So I was working on Arabic because I'm always trying to get that to be a viable language. And then I took too long doing that, and so then I had to scramble to get ready for this. But I also have a book. I have a book on the chair behind me that you can see behind me from my buddy Dr. Tim Furnish, fellow veteran historian. He's writing about Turkish counterinsurgency. And so I'm putting that in my head, one, to record a show, but also because he's my friend and he wrote a book. And, I try to read all your guys' books. Whew, and then I've got to put out a show, and then I've got to do marketing, then I've got to do sales, then I've got to do, pre-production on things. I've got to finish getting the Prison Chronicles out. I've got to, support my family here, with my presence. I've got 2 carpets for the studio out in the basketball court that have to be vacuumed and cleaned, and then everything moved out of the tent and the carpets brought. Man, it's a 16-hour day. I'm not deployed, and I work harder than that when I was deployed.
Yeah, I hear you.
When you go through that, it reminds me, and I wish I could remember where I read it, if it was an article or a book, but it was basically talking about how, a couple hundred years ago in Europe, when winter came, people didn't really work. Like, you just sort of buckled down. It was dark and cold, and it was like leisure time, like getting ready before the next crop season and stuff. So the majority of the people just didn't really work like through the whole winter. And I think about how, like, from the time we wake up to the time we go to bed now, you're trying to fill every single minute with, getting your to-do list done and your work and stuff. And it's, I don't know if it's a productivity thing, but I don't know how much more like a human being can cram into a 24-hour day than we do today, right?
Yeah. Well, I also didn't mention the fact that I nap every day, that I try to swim, and I try to slow down and not just work all the damn time. There's a lot of things on the list day to day to get done. It's remarkable. But you guys do have a pace now that you think is sustainable with the 4 books a year to keep going indefinitely.
I think so.
Well, at least for the next few years, yeah, I think we can do it. We'd be liars if we didn't say that there was a, obviously when we were talking all these deals and working, our agent was working these deals, and she's like, "Well, can you guys do this?" We're like, "Oh, absolutely." "Well, can you also do this?" Like, "For sure we can." And then Brian and I would get on the phone like, we can do this, right? Like, I don't know. Do you think we can? Seems like kind of a lot, dude. I don't know. But once we buckled down and got to it, it really just meant being more efficient. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's about making it a full-time job, and we can't waste any energy. We can't just like take 2 days off and celebrate that we finished a book, because there's a book waiting to be edited. And so it's required more discipline, but it's very doable. It's sustainable relatively indefinitely, I think. I have to figure out vacation.
Provided one of our editors doesn't come back with the book and say, start over. If we've had 3 months and they really hate it, we have to start over from scratch, then we might be in trouble. But
we'll be in big trouble. Or if either of us gets sick or hit by a car or anything like that, then it's over. The whole thing comes crashing down if anything happens. So,
which is another reason why COVID is good, Jeff, because we're both just locked in our house. Our chance of accidental death is quite low.
Right. Well, I don't know. I'm doing a lot of housework I'm not familiar with now.
One of the things that happens is that you start to, one, you no longer can afford to have things precious. Like, I demand this. Like, I don't have time for that anymore. Production is the key. Obviously, you have to put out a good enough product. But also, can you flex in capacity? Are you guys reaching a point where like some of this writing might have to be framed out by somebody else and you do more of a second pass? Like bring in some young writer or something?
It's a great question, Pete. And it's a great question because we have fellow writers asking us that same question all the time. Like, oh, so you're going to bring someone in now to write the tier 1, right? Now that you got this other stuff. We don't see the need for that. But more importantly, if we got to that point, I personally would rather give up a project. Like if it's going to say Andrews and Wilson on the cover of the book, I want it to be our creative work. I'm not criticizing anyone that use as ghostwriters and stuff. It's whatever you want, however you view the craft, however you view the business. But for Brian and I, we've always said, if you open this book, our name's on the cover and you read it, we wrote those words. And I don't ever want that to change. And I think that it's real easy to start with like, oh, you frame it out. Well, that means you wrote the rough draft. If I'm editing it after that, I'm your editor. I'm not the writer anymore. So
right.
I don't foresee us ever doing that. Now, that's an easy thing to say right now. Who knows what happens in the future? But I know I don't want to do that. That's the fun part. Like, that's the part we most enjoy. We'd be giving up the part we most enjoy to do more of the stuff we hate. Like, that's not good.
Okay, so again, back to like the creative folks who do these things, right? You're getting asked to do more things. I'm here to tell you that they're going to keep asking, and they're going to keep working you harder and harder and harder. How do you guys then balance that demand? Because like he's got, I mean, Brian, you said it. Like, when they ask, you have to say yes. When the songwriter gets hot and they want songs, you just keep writing songs. So even if you're working your ass off, because at some point they're not going to ask anymore. You're going to have to refigure it out. So how do you balance the demand for more of your time with the requests? It's good to have requests coming in, but now you have to manage a whole different part of the process.
So the only way we could do something like that is, and this is, I guess, Jeff and me having this conversation on the air for the first time. So that's sort of fun, Pete. I think if it was very clear from the beginning that, this is an Andrews and Wilson, universe project or branded project, but it's written by, we would want to give credit to whoever they would become part of our team, so to speak, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess a good analogy is, we have just signed on to do the Webb Griffin Presidential Agent series for Putnam. We're super excited about it. Webb Griffin is one of the most prolific military thriller authors in history. I don't know, 60, 70 books, something like that, in multiple series. And so we've been asked to take on the Presidential Agent series now and continue that legacy. And for us, a big part of that was, okay, look, we said when we were negotiating this, we can't write like him, and we don't want to try to write like him. First of all, we would be a poor substitute for his style, and people would notice, and it'd be disingenuous. So if we're going to do this, we want to say, look, this is an Andrews and Wilson project. We're going to try to pay homage to the characters, but we want our brand on there so people know, okay, yeah, these guys are writing it. They're going to try to honor the characters, but it's going to have their unique style. So I think if we did something like that, where we had somebody else sub-branding us, we'd want to say, okay, let's pick somebody whose style is going to not try to imitate us, but we like it, and they would pay homage to the characters they're writing, but we wouldn't try to hide that from anybody. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the friends of the show, he's an author from New York named Jerome Preissler, or Pressler. I always forget if it's Preissler or Pressler. Damn Germans with their weird last names. Anyhow, he writes for Tom Clancy, and I think he's the third name in order on the book. So there's like Tom Clancy, and he partnered with somebody else to start a new series, and then here comes Jerome's name. But he gets to write on this major franchise, and that's, in the writing world, like, he's got a guaranteed income as long as he can continue to do what he knows how to do. He gets to do that, and still has time to write his own projects as well too. But I mean, that's a real thing. Like, Webb did a great job during his life of building out a brand. Tom Clancy, of course, does that. There is something to be said for being able to. I mean, Louis L'Amour has not written a book in 50 years, but I think there's another, probably more books since he passed than when he was alive that were written by him. So these are things that's a viable marketplace. You guys can create your own franchise and have people populate it, or, work within Webb's, whatever it is. There's opportunity there. And what a great thing, right? Like, your dream is to become the successful writer and be an author for a living. And here you are doing it, but it's like, how do we manage all of this dream work we have to do,
Yeah.
Right. And it's not unique to this. It's any career, any profession has that point in its trajectory where you sort of meet max capacity and you have to make some tough decisions. But I think the three of us, we bring something different from the mainstream, which is the military background, and that team aspect. As co-authors, we get asked questions about co-authoring all the time, of course. But I think the most important thing that made us effective at this, and is also going to help us as we get busier and have to manage our time differently, is our experiences in the military. That mindset of, mission before self, team before self. Those are important concepts when you start to get to that point in the trajectory where sacrifices need to be made. And when you have a partner that has that same mindset, because he's also a military guy, it makes it a lot easier. But I think it's going to be the same for time management and, making tough decisions as it was for the craft of co-authoring. It's going to be a team effort, and that makes us more efficient, more effective. There's no ego. It's no who wins, whose name goes first. There's none of that with us, obviously, because he won. But so we have that.
Not today, he didn't. Not today.
You guys arranged this in advance, didn't you?
You know what it is I know what it feels like to be Wilson, because I'm the last guy in the tees usually, unless there's a Tyler there. And I'm like, God damn it. Can't we ever go first? Yeah. The other thing I want to ask is, you guys do need some sanity time. And I get it. You have to hustle. You're not, afforded a lot of free time to go, hunt or whatever it is that you're going to go do, because you get to live your dream. But you do got to take care of yourselves, and you do need to shut down and go out with your significant other and go vacation or whatever it is. Are you guys good at holding yourselves accountable to that part of it, or do you just work through that nonsense?
Yeah, I mean,
I think. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
Go ahead.
I think that you have to be very intentional about it, right? And one thing that Brian and I have very much in common, that was part of our initial friendship, actually, when we first met, was we realized instantly that we had a similar view on family and the importance of family and our commitment to family. Our kids are about the same age, or some of them. I have kids spread out across almost generations now, but we both are I think that whatever your career, you have to be very intentional. If you want that to be a priority and you want yourself to be a priority in their lives, you need to be very intentional about carving out that time. Wendy and I committed early in our marriage. Once we got busy with kids, we're going to go have a date night twice a month, and we're going to go on a little trip of some sort twice a year. So every December we go on a trip for our anniversary. Not every December when there's a pandemic. We'll see what happens, but. And every July we go to New York with Thriller Fest, which we didn't get to do this year. But we've been very intentional about that. And same with the kids, not just sitting on the couch, but they have different interests. And so I make sure that I'm there doing her praise and worship music. I'm there with Jack when he's learning his guitar. Ashley just needs someone to play dolls with her. Connor wants to talk about school. So you just have to make sure that that's a priority. And if you're starting to give those things up so that you can write a novella, you got to say, well, how important is writing another novella? We haven't gotten to that point yet, but I think that we're on the same page, that we have that commitment. And that's how I recharge myself. It's for me, I don't need to go, have a bowling night with the guys or a night out on the town with the guys or whatever. I just need time with my kids, and I need time with my wife. And that recharges me. But you do have to be intentional. I think
What about you, Brian?
Yeah, no, I think I like the way Jeff answered that question. And I think that, one of the things I try to do is I tell myself, well, why am I doing this? There is an element that's for me, I like storytelling, and I like having pride and accomplishment. So there is a component for me. But the other reason is I'm doing this, for my family. I picked this career because I wanted to be able to be home and not have to be on the road all the time. Before I did this, when I got out of the military, I had my own business, and I was traveling, 6 months of the year. I was always at power plants and managing projects and, doing sales trips and stuff like that. And, when we had our first child, I said, do I really want to keep doing this? Could I make authoring a full-time job where I get to work from home and travel only as I choose? And so that was a very conscious decision for me. And so, now when I'm at home, I don't want to just be in my office, 11 hours a day and have the door locked. So I try to do the same thing like Jeff said, where I say, okay, I do my work. I try to do my work more efficiently so that I can come out and spend time with the family and be engaged with what they're doing too, because otherwise what's the point of any of this?
And then what about the two of you? Do you need to get together every now and then to kind of reconnect, recenter, reinvigorate, or are you guys pretty good at distance writing?
We like getting.
I get enough of him. I get more than enough of him.
Yeah.
The thing about I talk to him on an average day. I probably have more minutes in conversation with Brian than I do with my wife. She's at work teaching class, and we're on the phone 4 or 5 times a day. So professionally, I don't think we do, but personally we do, because we started out, we were very good friends. I would consider Brian certainly one of my best friends now. So personally, we need that time to connect. So I haven't been to Kansas yet, but he's been here a couple of times. We always meet in New York at Thriller Fest. And the nice thing about a book launch usually is it means we're going to be on the road and do a couple of visits, a couple of places, do a signing or an appearance, and we get to just connect and have a dinner or something. And then, of course, with Corona, with this last launch of Collateral, it's all been virtual, so we haven't gotten to do that. But it's more of the personal connection than professional, I think.
Yeah, this year we were looking forward to it. We were going to maybe do a Grand Canyon trip together with the families, and I was at least going to come down to Florida, and so it was unfortunate this year. We planned to do quite a bit of traveling, and we were going to meet up in New York, of course. So that all got shut down. But when we launched Tier 1, we were in the really, really enviable position that our book tour launched in Pearl Harbor, so we got to fly out to Hawaii. And we did stuff at the exchange, and we toured a submarine, one of the new Virginia-class submarines with some contacts of mine. And so, there's some pictures of us on our website of Jeff and I like having breakfast together, on Waikiki Beach, at the restaurant by the beach and stuff. Like that sort of stuff is really, really fun. And again, that's another reason to do this job, because and then we did where we go last December, Jeff. We went to North Carolina, right? The Bragg and
we went to Fort Bragg, and we went out to the coast of Carolina and did a radio show, and that was a fun one too. That was a nice little road trip. We sort of both flew into Raleigh, Durham, and picked up a car, and then did a little circle through Virginia and North Carolina. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's those, and that's also like remembering to slow down and enjoy these moments too, because it is sort of one of the fringe benefits. Like you get to go to Hawaii and work, and then you have to look around and go, "We're working right now," and just
totally right. And the other thing is, we've tried to say, okay, and again, Corona's kind of screwed this plan, but we had a couple ideas for doing some events in Virginia Beach and we want to go to areas where there's military bases and personnel. And so instead of it being just a book signing where you go to a bookstore and you hope some people show up and you don't know them, they may or may not have things in common with you. If we can get involved with active duty military where we're hanging out, I mean, that's really what we want to do. We write these novels to sort of celebrate our military service and also the people that are still active duty. And the commitments and courage that they've made to defend our country. We just want to hang out with these folks, right? So that's important too.
Scott Husing and I just did a multi-state, coast to coast ride for Save the Brave is our charity here, and trying to reduce veteran suicide. By the way, on that trip, 2 veteran suicides happened that came into us with phone calls. So it's crazy, but the good part is going from California to South Carolina and back, we got to experience a lot of America, and we didn't see a bunch of Confederate flags. We didn't see a bunch of coronavirus. We just saw wonderful people who would, bikers who would come out and ride us in and out of town, people who were desperate to come see us and encourage us. And, those days when we're in the middle of, West Texas and it's 100-something degrees outside, Scott's on his motorcycle and I'm even in my truck, and granted I'm in my truck, but I'm like, God damn, it's hot in this fucking truck, and I got the AC blasting. He must be dying, and just to pull over and have those moments together where you are doing something hard. It was wonderful. It was wonderful to see our nation, the beauty of it physically, the beauty of the people. we often get trapped in this virtual world where things seem a lot darker than they really are. But you get out and you go experience the real world, and it, you know, it, it was wonderful to go out and do those things. And it's a shame that Corona keeps us so locked down, and appropriately so. But I always encourage people, get out, go hear live music, go to a book signing, go do all of these things so that you have a chance to see something besides what's represented on TV or the internet.
Yeah, and that speaks to what Brian was saying. Being able to mingle with people. It's not for us about signing a book, and it's probably not for them about getting their book signed. It's just about connecting. Spending time with each other, swapping war stories. That's why we love doing them at the military bases and the exchanges and that sort of venue, because we're telling stories. We inevitably meet at least a few people. It's like, oh yeah, I know that guy, and it's a way to connect on a human level. It's not about me getting to sign my name, and it's not about them having my name in their book. It's about meeting each other and connecting. And it is kind of hard this time with this launch to miss out on that part of it. It's other than the actual crafting a book with Brian, that is the best part, connecting with the readers.
Let's sell this book a little bit. Let's talk about it, because obviously, it's the 6th book in the series. How close do you guys try to get to reality? I mean, obviously there's the story, you have to serve that, and there has to be some entertainment value, but do you constantly borrow from what's happening in the world? Because again, the world is a crazy place. There are, bad people and everything, but I see that there's Russians involved. There's always a great bad guy. Talk a little bit about book 6 and how close you guys get to reality with it.
I mean, thank goodness, right, that there's so many bad actors in this world. It gives us plenty of material for all of these stories. And I say that tongue in cheek, but there is some truth to that, because we, like Jeff and I both, are always sort of scouring current events. We try to stay very up on, what's going on geopolitically. And our method has always been to say, okay, this is what's happening now, but why is it happening? What is the end game? And I think we've seen, from just all the stuff in the news with what Russia's doing, these guys, and same with China, they're playing the long game. So what you see today is not indicative of what they're doing today. It's indicative of what they planned, several years ago. And so you have to look ahead. You have to pull out your crystal ball, and we pull out our Andrews and Wilson crystal ball, and we try to say, okay, what could be happening? What could happen down the road? And so we've been sort of lucky in some respects, because, the time to market from when you write a book to when it gets out is long. So a lot of times, if you have a great idea now, it might happen next month, and then your book comes out a year later and you look like you just copied something that already happened. So we have to try to stay ahead, and so we've been pretty good about that. And so what we did with Collateral is that same exercise of saying, okay, we saw what happened in Crimea, we've heard some saber rattling, we see the word Nova Russia show up periodically from time to time in Putin talking points. How would he go about trying to further destabilize Ukraine? Okay, why does the Russian ship count in the Black Sea keep going up? Why did they go from 2 kilo submarines to 9? Why are they building this new guided missile class fast frigate that's populating Sevastopol naval base? So we look at all those things and say, okay, we see what they're doing. How could they put these assets to work? And that what if scenario always drives the story. And that's what we did with Collateral.
And with Collateral, what was fun was being able to, what we did in the first 3 books with the Iranians as the bad guys, as the, VVAC were sort of our antagonists. And we understand their mindset and, how they do false flag operations. And so you start with the what if and what do they want to do, but then you also have to put the Russian personality into it. And that was some fun research to say, look at historically what these people have done, how have they done it? And we tried to pull that thread through as well. And it's really interesting when you look at, Russian geopolitics. Russia is, Brian likes to use the term, they believe in the zero-sum game. And I think that's exactly right. Russia doesn't say, well, the way we can become the global leader is by being the best leader. they say we can become the best leader by dragging everybody else down and destabilizing regions, and we'll look better by comparison if we can just make them look worse. And it does seem to be part of their psychopathy, doesn't it? Like this, not the Russian people, of course, but the leaders of Russia. The psychopathy seems to be, I'm not going to work hard to make my nation great. I'm just going to ruin everybody else's nation so I'll look good by comparison. And so you see it's subtly woven through the last 3 books, including Collateral, that mindset of our fictitious Putin of that, that's how he's going to achieve his goals. Well, they'll like us more if we just make them hate America. And so they do these false flag operations to destabilize Turkey. In book 4, American Operator, which kicks off our Russian trilogy, there's these attacks in Turkey that are false flag operations being conducted by this super secret organization within Russia that mirrors the Ember team in our books, or in our good guy world. So, they start to destabilize Turkey, because then Turkey will like us or like Russia because they start to hate America. And then they spread that into, throughout the Baltics. What would that look like? And it sort of comes to a head in Collateral. And what was really fun, and you can appreciate this, Pete, what was fun about Collateral was, our books are very much covert operations, denied area, denied access, very small unit stuff. What if that was all going on in the backdrop of what is becoming a global conflagration, right? And so we step the stakes up we really literally bring us to the brink of a world war, a Russian-American war in the Baltics. And so for the first time in any of our books, we've got an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer that's a key figure in this. We have Marines on the ground in the Ukraine. We have F-22s from the Air Force. We have F-35 Marines, conducting operations, keeping the skies safe. Where are the Kilo submarines? We don't shift away from Ember, but that becomes the stage on which they're operating. And we went into it excited, but also a little nervous. Like, that's a whole new level for us. And it was really, really fun to write. Brian actually was able to reach out to a former skipper of an Arleigh Burke, and we had a whole conversation with him about their operations, since neither of us has done that. We had a blast. We just had an absolute blast doing this book.
I think you need a middle-aged former spy character who gets injected into, places and sits in cafes and drinks hot chocolate all day, but it's always working, and it's always
but it's always working in a tent. And if he had a tent,
yes, in a tent, yes, he's rakish, he's roguish, he's handsome, and but doesn't do a whole lot in the whole story until like that one meeting has to happen, and then he just disappears into the background again. I'd like to see more of those kind of characters. I'm sort of fond of them.
I think you might find
talk
yourself
offline, Pete.
Say it again, Brian.
I was going to say, you better be careful. You might find yourself in a cameo.
Yeah. That's actually funny you bring that up. On Friday, my friend Kat Connor, I don't know if you guys know Kat, but Kat writes a series. It's thriller based. It's FBI, and then there's like a special detail team that does high end terrorism things. They fight pandemics, and just like you guys, she's got her finger ahead of the pulse. And so she was writing about this virus a couple of years ago, and then like it comes back, and there's terrorists involved, and all this, intent and everything. And it's just great to have Kat on, because she's killing it. Like 11 books into her series, and it's just fantastic. But also, she put me in the book. She put the Break It Down show in the book. I got a little cameo, because I like, she'll say, "Hey, read this part. What do you think about like the spy stuff?" And I'm like, they would never say this, but they would do that, and this doesn't work. And then so she just instantly knows what to do, and she fixes it and everything. And I love being part of that part of her process, because it's just fun to say, like, no, that this part right here, and then see the change come out. So it was really neat to have the cameo. So we'll have her on Friday and discuss that, and I'll bring you guys up. You guys are really in a small world, though, because if you don't know Kat, you guys know Jack Carr. Jack Carr's been on the show. You guys are all in this thing together. And I should introduce you guys to Jerome too, since he writes for Clancy. And it's incredible how small this world really is. I love it.
Yeah, it really
is.
It really is.
It's a very tight-knit group.
Are you guys competitive?
I mean,
with one another?
We're not competitive with each other, but I would say we're both very driven sort of type A people. You wouldn't have, I guess you wouldn't have bios maybe like ours. We wouldn't have done all these different things and sort of tried to always be at the forefront if we weren't, driven individuals.
Yeah.
I think driven, but I'm not sure I would use the word competitive. I tend to compete with myself. Like I've never been one to measure myself against other people. You know what I mean? Like I don't feel successful because I did better than, Joe or Jim or whoever. I feel successful if I've set a goal for myself and I've achieved it. Whether it's, some of the things we've done or things left to do. So yes, competitive or driven might be the better word. I don't think I really measure myself against other people, actually almost to a sociopathic level, probably.
I think that Jeff hit on something key, and I wish I would. I use it with my kids, and I wish I would have heard this quote when I was like 18. And it's a great Mark Twain quote. He said, "Comparison is the death of joy." And it's such a paradigm shift when you realize all that's happening in social media these days is working against that. It's everybody's posting pictures of themselves, these young kids trying to look perfect and outdo each other. Everything's compare. And what Jeff said is the only sort of healthy psychological model is you really have to measure yourself against yourself. So, it's not fair as an author to say, well, okay, this book did not sell as well as Tom Clancy, I'm a failure. No. What you need to do is say, this book came out. I want to do better than I did last time. Every event needs to be its own event, because you don't know all the factors that went into the success of the latest Tom Clancy book. You can't measure the power of that brand. You don't know what publicists they used and what social media tactics and how much money they spent on marketing and promotion. You don't have any of that data. The data you do have is, okay, we did this last time. How can we make this time's, book better?
Right.
And
much healthier psychologically to operate that way.
And I think most writers in this genre, Peter, like that. A lot of guys and girls that write in this genre. So I think you probably agree with me. Like there's a few, and we've met a few that are out there. Like they won't tell you what they're working on, and they don't help you. If you had a question, they wouldn't answer it because then you might sell more books or whatever. But by and large, that's very rare. Like we all accept that your book doing great does not affect my book at all. Like the people that read in this genre, they read more than one book a year. Hopefully they read at least 4. That's our hope. But so you're not really helping or hurting anybody. In fact, just yesterday I was on the phone with another thriller author, who's a close friend of ours. And this author had a question about this particular scene and didn't know how it would unfold. How could you make a helicopter do this and that? And I spent like 45 minutes and we talked all through it and brainstormed it together, just like I would with Brian for one of our books. And I didn't go up and get off the phone and go like, oh man, now I can't use that, or that book's going to do better. Like it's a friend. They had a question. I helped them out. And I know if I called Jack Carr, if I called, any of these other authors, Josh Hood, Mark, any of our friends, and said, hey, help me out with this, they wouldn't think for a minute about doing anything but help us. So competing with yourself, driven, but not at the expense of others.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. The podcast world is very similar too, in that, we were talking offline beforehand, super saturated, highly competitive in that you're always competing for audience, but not competing with each other. You're competing, for attention, and you don't get to pick your opportunities necessarily. They come along and you just continue to stack them. Like our show does great. We're in the top 1%, if you can believe that, for shows. And gosh, if you're a veteran podcast, you better get in line behind, because we are very successful. However, we're still going up that mountain, and it gets steeper and steeper all the time. And there's always things making you want to quit and everything. But when you do what you love, that's just the hard stuff, Yeah, I'm in a tent, and if I was to do this at noon, I would be super sweaty. But I've sat in a tent and sweated before. I just, I love it too much to stop. And so, if Joe Rogan's going to get $100 million contract, goddamn, that's awesome. Spotify's spending money. Let's get people paid, and I'll be in line when I've flipped all the switches. Someone's going to call me and say, "Hey, where have you been? Look at all this shit you guys have done." And the same thing's happening for you guys. You write books, you put your name on the board, people can complain about it, but they're complaining about something you created. Like there was no argument before, but you created something that caused this interaction, and it all washes out to be, I think, at least a good thing, as long as your well-being is cared for. Like you said, Brian, like you're taking care of yourself mentally and not driving yourself crazy.
Yeah, it almost goes back to what Jeff said before about the Russian mentality. You have to think about that. In America, we really do try to promote this win-win mentality. It's a very different mentality than the zero-sum game. And I think, our success is testament to the fact that the Russian model is a very short-sighted negative model, because we started this journey at Thriller Fest with ITW and all the other thriller authors. And it's simply been, hey, let's all row this boat together, right? Let's carry this, rib like the Navy SEALs do over your head as a team, because it's just too much to try to do this by yourself. And so you help each other out, you give each other blurbs, advice, you connect people. I don't remember how we got connected with you, but it was probably an introduction from somebody else, right? And it's just pay it forward. And we're grateful for our community. We try to do the same thing back.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's a great thing to be able to invest into a community of people that are all working towards their own goals, their common goals, whatever it is. But it's an important outlook on life. Everybody should buy the book on Amazon through the link. That helps me a little bit, but also helps these guys too. The latest one, it's Collateral, a Tier 1 novel. It's book number 6 from Andrews and Wilson. Fellas, we're going to be short on time here, but do you want to ask me any questions at all?
Yeah,
not that you want me to ask you on air.
You hit me. I'm ready. What do you got?
I mean, I guess my first question is, and we sort of got to this earlier, but what do you see, like if you took out your crystal ball, what changes do you see coming down the road, in our industry, but also, in how our industry ties with your industry?
Lots more overlap. To elevate a book series to, the Amazon or to the, Hulu or whatever level, you guys have an audience. Now you have to get to that next level, like you've expanded your audience again, so that you can show those TV networks who are desperate for content that you're worth a bet on them. So I can see a lot more collaboration between, obviously you come on and you talk about your books and people buy them, but that's the book world. Like, how do you get into the bigger storytelling world? And that's what those producers are looking for. They're looking for people that can grow their audience. And so that when you come into the Hulu, the Amazon, whatever it is, Netflix, that their audience will respond to it, because there's not going to be less content in the next 10 years. There's going to be even more streaming platforms, more and more people doing it. And so how do you differentiate yourself when almost anybody can have a podcast and literally almost anybody can write a book? And I'm just saying, write a book and get it published. Like, that is something that we can all do with a fairly small amount of money and a large amount of time. But I think that's that ability to continue to find ways to entertain people and fill their time. We just talked about how Audible now has podcasts on it, because everybody's trying to grab audience. So if you can build an audience, whether it's cross-platform like we're talking about here between books and podcasts, or just continue to make your books sell better, I think that there's a lot of potential there for things to change. Because look at Hollywood. It's all sequels and superhero movies right now. And that time will come to an end, and I don't need homages to former movies. I can't stand to watch those Star Trek movies anymore, because half of the movie is just like some kind of name check or thing in there. Like, and where are the thrillers in Hollywood? Like, thrillers are ripe for a comeback. And that's sort of what I see is just, an evolution of the marketplace. And having access to these, things like books and podcasts that are out there that people love because it's something different. I think there's some real value there.
Great.
Yeah. Any other questions, or should we call it?
I got nothing. This is why I don't have a
I like
podcast. if I knew a question asked, I'd be sitting in your seat. I never can think of
That's
it.
true. All right, well, listen, everybody, definitely support Jeff and Brian. These guys are good dudes, as you can tell. The book series is called Collateral. Obviously, they're doing more things, so look for more books from these guys. 4 books a year. Good grief. Writing for web, that's incredible. You guys are really, really killing it. And it's just great to have all of the veteran authors that we have on, whether it's Jeff Hopp or Jack Carr. I mean, it's just incredible to have all of you guys on and sharing time with all of you. Thank you so much for coming on. Everybody go out and buy that book. It's awesome.
Thanks,
Pete.
Great time.
Anytime, man. We always enjoy.
Sounds good. All right, I'm going to sign off. Stand by.